Okay.
There we go. We're live. Let's start the title tag there. Title screen.
Okay. 11 is online, Steve. I can see. So we should check if they can hear us clearly or not.
Yeah. If you folks want to just give us a little message in the chat window, and we'll see if we're all coming through. Okay.
I can click on the next button, Steve. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, see the next button in here. Yes, perfectly. Shogoto says, I'm running Ubuntu Linux, but hope I can learn some things. Okay, you're fine. Sounds fine.
Yeah, and yeah, this actually works on Ubuntu, and it's quite similar to what you'll see here today. So that's good, and also Windows folks.
Yeah, one more information, guys. There are two presenters right now. I am Shubhajit and this is Steve, but I don't have a working webcam in my hand right now, so you guys won't be able to see me.
Well, let's go forward just because we've got a lot of slides, and then we want to probably take questions. So yeah, let's go forward as we are right now.
Okay, so
I'm going to turn off my camera while you keep going. So go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this is the fourth webinar maybe we are going to host related to JackTrip servers.com or musicianstogetherapart.com. And today we are going to talk about fine-tuning the JackTrip, like how you are going to get the best out of the JackTrip software, and also JackTrip servers using private JackTrip servers. And we are also going to take some questions from you guys. So let's begin.
Oh, hang on 1 second. We've got a potential where we have Sid saying he's got a reconnect message. So let's just make sure we get folks still running there. So hang on. Let's just wait for 1 second. Has anybody got an issue with connecting? Because this software isn't happy sometimes, and it's not our fault. Yeah, let us know, Sid, if you get back in there, or anybody else that got knocked out. And the thing is, folks,
guys, if you see, yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Okay, Jacob is saying sound video is fine.
Okay, well, let's keep going.
Yeah, so if you guys see any reconnect button, just click on that. I think you will be able to see the webinar clearly after that. So we are going to host it. I'm Shubhajit, and there is Steve Chef in the other side. And just a quick overview of the JackTrip and JackTrip servers. JackTrip is a software where people can jam or play music remotely. And it actually uses not use any audio compression system, so it can provide a really low latency, so people can like play music together without checking any without finding any latency at all, and it will feel like they are actually playing together at the same time at the same room. So for more information, you can visit our website musicianstogetherapart.com, and so this is a basic FPP settings. In this screenshot, you can see that this is a difference between the Zoom call and JackTrip latency. There are JackTrip is actually 96 milliseconds ahead of Zoom calls, so you can understand the latency thing. Okay, JackTrip actually provides DVD quality audio, which is 48 kilohertz and 16-bit samples, and it's, as you can see, it's not compressed like Zoom or Skype or any other like audio conferencing software. They actually use audio compression system to provide the best quality audio on their part. But JackTrip doesn't use that. JackTrip doesn't use any kind of audio compression system, so it can provide low latency. And you can check the difference between Zoom and Skype, and also you can compare JackTrip with Zoom and Skype audio quality in our website, which is musicianstogetherapart.com/listen. Use headphones while checking those audio files. And okay, so this is a really recent news we got that people who were using JackTrip while actually performing some jam from their home. And this is a recent news from September 2, which is yesterday. And you can find that on SoundCloud. This is the link, and we will send this link to you in our next email. So you can check that also. Okay, so the facilities of using JackTrip servers, which we are providing, private JackTrip servers, is that everyone, like all the people, don't have to get all the things in their home at all. Like everything will be there in our private JackTrip servers. They just have to connect to the server, like all the people. Like if you want to jam with one other people, if you want to jam with 3 other people, or 4 other people, or more than that, then you can do that by using the private JackTrip servers what we are providing. You just need to connect to our server using the IP address we will provide from your computer, and that will be all. You need a good internet connection also to do that. Yeah, just what I said, our server is in one location, and if you are the recommended location or recommended radius from the server is 250 miles. So if you are living in between 250 miles from our server locations, it will do the best, you will get the best audio quality while doing music together. And here comes the list of our servers, the top 11 servers which are almost ready to go. You will get your private JackTrip servers in almost no time. It takes around 3 minutes, I think. So, and you can connect to that server directly to start jamming. And you can see there are also 14 other additional cities which takes around 3 days for us to set up. So the pricing and also the setup details will be conveyed when you guys contact us if you need a server in these cities. Okay, so as we mostly going to talk about Mac in this webinar, the Mac OS. The recommended Mac OS to use JackTrip software is Catalina and Mojave. And you can download the JackTrip software from our website, which is musicianstogetherapart.com/software. And to get the details on how to install the software on Mac, you can click the link in the presentation, but you will get the link in your email also, which we will get right after the webinar. And for the Windows 10, whoever is using Windows, you can get the software from the same link, which is musicianstogetherapart.com/software. You need to download the Windows version in that case. And USB audio interface is also a device you guys will require. So the results of the quality, the latency, the audio quality will depend on the USB audio interface and the internet connectivity what you are having in your home. And the installation details and demonstration video for Windows is in this link, which you will also get in the email after the webinar. Okay, so from now on, Steve will take over and give you the details about fine-tuning JackTrip softwares. There is a checklist. So I'm asking Steve to take over. Steve?
Okay, great. Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just move ahead to the next slide here. And just FYI, we had a couple of people suggest checklists as a helper because the JackTrip stuff can get somewhat tricky, especially if you're not used to things like terminal on the Macintosh. Once you get used to it, it's sort of easy to repeat. What you'll see is we are putting together in this presentation sort of the list of steps, but we're going to send out on Friday to the folks that attended something that's going to be more like a checklist than a PowerPoint presentation. Excuse me. So a couple major things I'm just going to go through. One is just the sort of main steps that you want to have done to make sure it's going to work. And this is pretty important because you want to always make sure that you can get your audio into your computer and then from your computer to the server and then back. So first thing is, if you install Jack, and that would be according to the Stanford downloadable software links that you'll find in our website, musicianstogetherapart.com/software. Once you have all that installed, you just want to verify that everything is correctly there on your computer. And in this case, we're looking at a Mac. All the screenshots you'll see are from a Macintosh, real similar to Linux and Windows, though. So Jack, there's two softwares, right? So one is Jack, and that's the Jack Audio Connection Kit, kind of a recursive name. And so that's the program that handles internal audio inside of a computer. And then JackTrip is another piece of software that does the fancy stuff that sends it out to the internet very efficiently by using Jack. Okay, so the idea is you just want to make sure that after you've installed, you can go to your Launchpad and search on QJackCTL, QJACK. So you'll see a little Jack icon there. It looks like a painter's palette or something like that. So that just means you've got it in there. And then if you launch it, you want to just make sure you get this little panel here, Jack Audio Connection Kit panel with all that good stuff. And then we want to make sure JackTrip is installed. And so that's something that you can't necessarily see an icon for JackTrip. You have to actually go into the terminal and type the word JackTrip. Okay, so the first thing is just to make sure you understand how to open up a terminal. So you can just type terminal in the Launchpad, or you can go to your applications in your Finder and look for terminal. And that'll bring up when you click on it, it'll bring up this window here, and it'll just have like the name of your PC. In this case, it says Stevens-Air, and then the little item there that has a $sign after it. And that $sign and the blinking cursor afterward, that's telling you, that it's ready for your command. So now the command to see if JackTrip is working is what we're going to do in the terminal. And that's where you just type JackTrip minus lowercase v. And so one thing you'll notice is anytime in the terminal, if you're typing JackTrip, it's all lowercase. We might refer to it with a capital J and a capital T in the word, but anytime you're typing it into terminal on Windows, Linux, Linux, or Mac, always lowercase. Okay, and the minus V says what version is it. And so it may be hard to see on the screen right now, but the picture here on the right just shows that it's version 1.2. And that is the current Macintosh version. But if you're using Linux or Windows, you're going to see that it's 1.2.1. Okay. And then we want to verify the settings in Jack. Okay, so what we've just done is made sure that Jack and JackTrip are installed. So now we're going to want to verify that you have the right settings to move forward. Okay, and so this is something where a checklist will fit really nicely. And again, this is just sort of a visual thing. But basically, you're going to start Jack. Excuse me, I'm going to say you're going to launch Jack, but you're not going to click Start. So it's kind of two different things. You launch the program, but you don't click the Start button there. And then when you're in there, you hit the Setup button on the right side, and you look at these things that we've listed here in the bullets on the left part of the text here on the screen: server path, driver, interface, frames per period, and sample rate. And so this is also given in the software download link at Stanford University. So the main thing is just to see if you have these things in there, and if you do, you're good. If you don't, just adjust them. And you will want to adjust the frames per period later, depending on how it works as you're fine-tuning. But basically, these are the important things that are going to be paid attention to at the time of verifying your installation is good. All right, and then we're moving forward towards the audio testing now. So you want to make sure that you've got your USB audio interface attached to your computer. Some folks have audio interfaces that are more complex and fancy and expensive, and they require you to go in there and set them up for a particular sample rate. And so it's important that you set it to 48 kilohertz and 16-bit. And the reason is the servers only run at that speed, or that sample rate, rather. Oftentimes, though, people do recording at 96 or 192 and stuff like that. So just make sure that if you do have settings that you in your USB audio interface through some other screen of whatever it is, just make sure it's 48 kilohertz 16-bit. Okay. And let's go to the next screen here. All right. Now, in the settings for Jack, we had chosen the default as the input source and output source. Okay. And what that means is it's going to use whatever you set your Macintosh to for the input and output devices. Okay, so what I've got here is just screenshots of the sound preferences windows that come up when you go to your Mac preferences and sound preferences. And so you want to look at your output device and make sure that it's set to, let's say, your USB audio interface. Maybe it's an M Audio M track, or it's a Evo 4, whatever. That will show up there, and you would just select it. And then same thing for the input. That's the one down below on this screenshot here. You would select, the USB audio interface name. What you'll find here is external microphone and headphones. These are the ones that are selected. The reason this is here is because we're actually able to use a Macintosh with only the built-in headphone jack and microphone jack. So if somebody wants to test this out without actually investing money into a USB audio interface, it is possible. The other thing is, as you do this, you want to make sure that you can make some sound appear on the input level meter here on the input screen. So that's in addition to making sure your settings are correct for the right devices in your Mac settings. Make sure your Mac sees the sound coming in, and you can see it on the input level meter. All right. Now this is going to get a little bit more technical and boring. So I want to suggest that you guys interject with any questions you want, because this is going to hopefully just show you, the things that end up having to happen to get it started, and then give you a frame of reference for, what's needed in order to get everything set up and repeatable, with musician partners. So two things. One is just to be aware that it's going to be kind of tedious, boring, whatever, complex looking here, maybe. And keep in mind that, we'll make this a lot easier to digest just by having a checklist. That'll be coming out Friday. And then, of course, there'll be a recording of this webinar. But I would like to have anybody ask questions while we're going through this, and one of us will respond or interject. Okay, so real key thing to note here is after you've made sure your software is installed and that you've got these settings, like the 48 kilohertz setting, after you've got that going, you want to just test if your audio can go into your computer and back out. And you're not even using JackTrip in that case. You're just making sure that the audio flow is there. And we do that with Jack. Okay, and Jack being the thing with that little small rectangular window there. All right, so it turns out if you start that, you'll get a connect window that you can pop out by clicking on connect in the lower left-hand corner. And the connect window will bring up this little box here with a left side and a right side. Okay, and without anything else running, you'll see system on the left and system on the right. And if you select those, click once on system on the left, click once on system on the right, you'll get a line popping up between them showing a connection. Well, that means you're looped back. And so you'll want to just do a loopback test. See if you can hear yourself. And if you can, that means your audio is going through your USB interface into your computer, into the Jack software, and then back out to your USB interface. All right. And then the most important thing is make sure that you can click the disconnect button on that same Jack window, and then make sure your audio goes away, your loopback. And if it doesn't, that just means you're listening to the local direct monitor output, and you just need to fix that on your USB interface so that you know which one you're listening to. Because direct monitor is great, but it won't give you the actual audio coming in from the musicians also connected to the server. All right. So let's say we've got that working. You've been able to get a loopback from the Jack software, and then you stop that. You know you've got no more sound after you stopped it, so you've got a good loopback. You know it's not coming from your local USB interface direct monitor. Now you want to just go the next step, and you want to do a loopback to the server. And this is where you just end up actually using JackTrip, but we're going to use it at a very lenient frames per period. So you're going to see a little more latency, but it's going to accommodate any glitches that might happen. So you're not starting out with super low latency right away. So what we're saying is you set everything to 256 frames per period in both Jack and the server. And we'll show you that in a second. And then you're just going to do a loopback test. So what we're doing is we're setting Jack in your local Macintosh computer or Linux or Windows, and setting it to 256, and that's all you're doing there. You save that. Okay. And then you can start Jack, and you'll see this started in yellow on there. And then we want to visit the server, and everybody that buys either a test server or a server for multiple users gets this same web interface, and you just make sure you click on 256. 32 in this case is the buffer size for the packet buffer, and then all clients with loopback as the server mode, and you update server settings. So by doing that, we now have a server that is matching the frames per period of the Jack software in your computer, and it's going to give you a loopback. All right. And so to continue, you're going to use JackTrip command, and that requires the IP address of your server, and you get that from your portal that you get after you purchase a server subscription. Purchase a server subscription, you get a link to a portal, and in the portal is the IP address. So the one that says here, welcome Subhajit 941, at the bottom of that is an IP address, and then you would just type that into the terminal window, and the command is here in the PowerPoint here, this slide, but I don't expect folks to remember it. But the main thing to remember is it is case sensitive here. And so what'll happen is after you type that in there and you get a message coming back at you, you get some lines of text, and then you get waiting for peer and received connection from peer. And so once that happens, you've got a good round trip from the server, and you can start listening for audio. And so if that works, it's fantastic. You've got a loop back all the way to the server and back. You know, could be 200 miles or whatever your distance is. And then you want to just close that terminal window, close the JackTrip session with a Command C, and that will stop JackTrip. And you want to make sure that the audio goes away. And that's normal way to just make sure you're testing that you are indeed hearing the loop back from the server and not something else. Okay. And you will have higher latency. So when you're doing this loopback test and you hear yourself with a fair amount of latency in the loopback, that's just because we've set it for high latency in this case. All right. And so basically what I've described is about all you need to do just to make sure you have a good connection. The thing here is that you want to make sure that for every partner musician or student, that person does the same thing. And that's just to make sure that they can establish that they have good connectivity to the server. Okay. And so if you don't know if JackTrip is going to work for you for any reason, we offer for $9.50 US the test server where one person can do a loop back, and you can share that loop back server and the IP address with anybody that you might be partnering with, and just make sure everybody can connect. And then if it's all good, you can go and purchase a 2, 4, or 6 person server. And if you need more than 6, contact us. We can set it up for you. All right. Fine tuning JackTrip. And this is where it gets a little more interesting. And again, please throw in questions for us in the chat, and if I can answer them, or one of us can answer them, we'll do that, and otherwise we'll answer it at the after this. So fine tuning. Okay, so everybody has different network conditions, and not just network conditions, but types of routers at home, or number of users in their home, in their home, like, and how many people are watching YouTube videos and all that stuff, right? So that's where JackTrip is good, because it can be tweaked a little bit, fine-tuned, I call it, in order to get you the lowest latency, but without audio glitches. Okay, so the audio glitches can happen when the network isn't doing its greatest, when the network is either in a poor quality, or people are downloading stuff, or whatever's going on. And it doesn't just have to be in your house, it could be in the internet provider. Okay, so this is just a list of factors that can affect it, some of many. One thing that a lot of people oftentimes overlook is Dropbox, because Dropbox will go and start using up tons of bandwidth in the background. You don't even know it. So if you or somebody in your house has Dropbox running and you're trying to do a JackTrip session, you want to make sure that they turn that off. Okay, so the main points to remember here for any JackTrip session actually is that this frames per period setting, which other people call it a buffer, it's a similar thing. This server setting has to match all of the musicians, or rather the musicians have to match what the server is. So if the server is set to 64 frames per period, then everybody just wants to make sure that they have their settings in their Jack software set to the same thing. All right. And the way you determine, what it should be on the server is by just having every musician do their own test to the server. Now you can always get a 2 or 4 person server or whatever you need and do it with them as well. So it's whatever you prefer. But the main thing is to get that connection into the server and see how well the audio sounds at 32, 64, 128 frames per period. The lower you can go, the closer you get to 32, the lower the latency. Okay, so that's anyway. So we'll jump in here a little bit in the fine-tuning stuff, and again, it gets a little more tedious, so hang in there. Basically, there's all these different values you can choose for frames per period, so 32 all the way up to 256. So we recommend you just sort of start in the middle at 64, sort of in the lower middle, and then you see if you can go lower than that and get good audio and good latency, or if you have to go higher than that to keep the audio good and suffer a little bit more on the latency side. So ultimate goal, get your frames per period as low as possible, and then the lowest packet buffer value. And there's 2 things to note here is there's a packet buffer on either side. And in the server, we call it packet buffer. And in the JackTrip command in the terminal, it's called the Q value, because there's a -Q and a number after that. So just to give a slightly better example here, here's an example of the settings in the server that you would go to start it at 64 frames per period and 24 packet buffer size. Okay, and then to do that in your Jack software, you would just set the frames per period on your Jack settings to 64 as well, and then click OK to update the settings. So probably boring. Catherine, good question. Let me get to that after going through this. Basically, so we're talking about testing audio, and you're just going to do a loopback, or you can do it with another musician. And you're going to use this JackTrip command here with a -Q24. Okay, so the JackTrip -C, the capital C means you're a client of a server, and then the IP address that you get after you subscribe to a JackTrip server, and the -Q24 is the packet buffer size. So if that sounds good, that means that when I say sounds good, that means, you know, there's no glitches coming at you, and you hear steady audio and no little, you know, bleeps and blurts. That's good. And then you say, okay, I'm good at that 64 frames per period and a Q value of 24. Let's see if we can go down to 32. So you can go down to 32 and try it again there. Okay, so you just sort of reset the server and change your setting in your Jack software to 32. And if that sounds good, then drop it down where you have the 32 frames per period, and then lower the Q value to 16. And so you do that. And if you get to a point where you hear some glitches, you just go back up. Okay, so increasing either the packet buffer size or the Q value. And then if that still didn't work, you go back to 64. And then if 64 originally had problems, you would go up to 128. So it's kind of crazy because you've got multiple numbers that you're playing with, and there's no good way to automate this, unfortunately. And part of the reason is because it depends on people hearing things. And so you've got to hear how much latency you can tolerate against the audio quality and stuff like that. But if you can do 32 frames per period, you're great, and that's a really good value, and you have great latency in that case. And if you can do 64, that's also good. The lower the Q value, the better. So, but 64 frames per period and a Q value of 24, packet buffer 24, that's good. Okay. Last thing is that you notice that the server has its settings for packet buffer, and that corresponds to the Q value in the JackTrip command on each musician's Macintosh or machine. Okay, that Q value can differ for each musician, so that's another thing that needs to be played around with, and you might find that some need to have slightly different value. That value does affect the latency, so you again have to sort of make sure everybody's got the right settings and they can all jam together. But once you get all this stuff, you go through all this configuration and testing, you're good to go. You know what numbers to leave it at, open it back up, and the next time you want to jam, rehearse, teach, you're good to go. All right, almost to the end here. Pricing update. Let me go back here. Pricing update. Do we have the pricing update, or did I kill it? I think I killed it. Looks like the pricing update is here. Okay. Okay. So we've got more efficient pricing in the 11 primary regions. So you go to our website, musicianstogetherapart.com, and you'll see that I think we start at $32.50 for 2 users server, and that can be any 2 users at any time. It just means you can put up to 2 people on it, and it could be 2 different people each time. Okay. And then 15 other regions, including Los Angeles, Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., Miami. Those all have custom pricing, and it's not by our choice. It's just because the providers that offer the cloud services in those other cities charge by the gigabyte of data, and audio data with this super high resolution DVD quality audio data takes a lot of gigabytes. So just imagine each user is sending out 1 CD or 1 DVD's worth of audio every hour, and it adds up. Also, yeah, we set it up where you could buy servers right away. You know, it takes 3 to 5 minutes to become live for you after you purchase. We've got it set up for 2-user server, 4-user server, 6-user server. If you need more than 6, if you need 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, contact us. We'll set one up for you. It's just that we don't have those set up for instant boot up. And that's because there's not as many people looking for those sizes of servers. All right. And I think that is everything. And we have some questions and answers probably here. Let me jump into that. I'm looking at the chat here. Before I do that, Subhajit, did you have anything to mention?
Yeah, I have one thing to mention, that all the things Steve said till now is not a thing you have to go to every time you set up the JackTrip session. And once you get the right FPP and Q value for you, it will be like 1 minute. It will take around 1 minute to connect to the private servers and start jamming or start playing your music with your partners. So that's the thing I wanted to say. And I think I can see there are a lot of questions in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go back here. So Jacob, bundled app, that is not available on the Mac, but it's getting that way on the Windows 10 version. So there's MSI that may be available. You sort of have to search Google, because what's happening now, most of this stuff is available at the CCRMA website, which is the Stanford website. So if you type JackTrip CCRMA or JackTrip Stanford or JackTrip Windows, you'll end up seeing that as one of the top most listings in Google. And you'll see that there's sort of the latest stable versions of this software, have certain installation instructions. And this software is being rapidly improved and tweaked and all that stuff. So there's, I believe, an MSI installer for Windows that somebody's done. But one thing to keep in mind, and we do fail to let people know this clearly enough, which is we provide the servers, so we are good at tweaking JackTrip to work with our servers. But JackTrip itself and Jack, those are open source projects that are out there on the internet for a very long time now. We did not invent those. We did not write the code. We don't support the code. But the code is a game changer, and we decided to create the servers in order to make it even easier to use than it used to be. So there used to be things where you had to do firewall configurations in your home router and stuff like that. Catherine, how many? Oh, Jacob, real quick. I just mentioned Windows MSI, and then you wrote Mac. Good question. Don't have an answer for that. If you know a Mac software package installer, though, feel free to let us know. How many musicians can be on the same rehearsal at the same time? Okay. So, Catherine, the number of musicians at the same time is dependent on the size of the server you subscribe to. And so right now you can get one for 2, 4, or 6 users. And it can be, doesn't have to be the same 6 users every time, obviously. And if you need more than 6, contact us, and we can explain or we can research the pricing for you, and based on the city and the number of users. Options for video incorporation. All right. What a lot of people do is they will just use Skype with the sound turned off. Some folks are doing Zoom with the sound turned off, and that just means you're listening to JackTrip through another system like headphones or something like that. And then, Jacob, why can't you automate? Because that's not our software. That's why we can't automate it. However, yeah, so good point, Jacob. And this stuff, I'm guessing, is the community out there is rapidly improving the software for ease of use. And our value add is the ease of use by having the servers be controllable with some clicks and stuff like that, and automatically created, after a few clicks. Let's see what else we got here. Sid, rural Vermont. Yeah. So looks like you've done a lot of stuff already with different sample rates. And so that's stuff where more complex stuff than we get into. And you may want to look at jacktrip.com, which is nothing to do with us, but it's a site with a lot of resources on it. And they might have some links that you can click on to where you can find more information about the different sample rates and where to put that in there. But our specific servers only run at 48 kilohertz. But I understand, because running lower might be an issue or needed. The other thing you can do, just folks out there, we don't tell folks necessarily right off the bat, but it is possible to convert from 2-channel stereo to just single channel, and that can save bandwidth. So that's where you put a minus lowercase n numeral 1, so minus n1, and that can bring the bandwidth down to half, actually. So another thing to try. And that's not really published anywhere because not many people do it, but it is one of the options. And if you want to see the other options, if you're techie, you can type JackTrip, just JackTrip into your terminal window, and you'll see all the options like -n and such. All right, I think.
Okay, I can see two questions, Steve. Tim is saying my colleagues and I are in Philly, San Fran, and LA. How we connect?
Yes. So that's interesting because people do that, and the latency is usually quite painful for some folks, depending on the if it's fast-paced music, because you're going 3,000 miles. But that doesn't mean it's not worth trying. So the recommendation is you would try for a server in either Los Angeles or Dallas. We have those. Dallas is actually the cheaper of those two, and see how it goes, or get the San Francisco server and just try everybody there. But it's really about testing. It's about seeing if whatever the latency is due to the distance, so the contribution of the distance to the delay amount, if that's tolerable based on the type of music or the BPM, the speed, then it's worth trying. So I would say try a server either in San Francisco or Dallas. That would be my suggestion on that. And then Dave asks, can I purchase 1 month at a time? We don't offer a 1 month subscription, but it's just a matter of buying a subscription, testing it, and then sometime before the 1 month is up, you click into your account and say terminate subscription, or you just email us, and we will do that. Okay. Yeah. Oh, Sid, Zoom with JackTrip. Does Zoom eat bandwidth? Good question. The answer is Zoom is good with low bandwidth connections, but if there's a race between Zoom and JackTrip, I think JackTrip can see a few more glitches, but it really depends on your network. So it's one of those things where you got to try it. We've had good luck, but I, as an engineer, don't want to promise somebody something and then they get upset because it didn't work for them. So my suggestion is try it, see if it works. And again, we have one of the reasons we set up the $9.50 test server subscription is just so folks don't have to invest a lot of extra, money to see if it's going to work with their particular network and their needs for video. And there is other stuff to try for video, like some people do use it with the Skype video, with the audio muted, and then some people use whereby.com. That's a totally browser run thing, just like Zoom and Skype actually, but it's just in the browser. And you would just turn the sound off on that as well. All right. My mouth is totally dried up here and I don't see any other questions. So we might say we're done for now unless any other questions arise. Any other comments, Subhajit?
No, nothing's coming to my mind right now, though.
Okay. Well, folks, do feel free to email contact@musicianstogetherapart.com. We get a lot of good questions from folks that way, so don't hesitate. And we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar to the folks that registered, and then we'll be sending out a checklist version of this, and that will be like a Word or a PDF doc. And that will also be on our website. So if you don't get that email right away, you can look on our website early next week as well. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Questions?
Thanks for joining.
All right.
Bye.